We continue with the Information Technology Paper 1, the practical paper for the Grade 12 September 2013 trial exams for the Eastern Cape. This is question 2, which is the object-oriented question. We've already done the part where we created the object, which was a T-school object, and we created the methods for that object. We then, in the previous video, created an array of that object of T-school, and we've populated that array with data from a text file. Now, with that array that's got a whole bunch of T-schools in, we are going to be using the information from there. So let's start off with this 2.2.2. We basically need to display all the applicants. It's only 2 marks, so we know it's a very simple, not very complicated question. So if I go to my data over here, let's go to the actual form, and I'm going to go to display all applicants because that's where I need to write the code. I'm obviously need to loop through the array, so I'm going to have an R variable, which is my looping variable. And if you remember correctly, when we created the array, we created an n variable, which is an integer, which told us exactly how many elements are in the array. So my looping variable can go from 1 to n. And also, it's normally good practice whenever you're displaying things in a memo control or in, for example, over here, we've got this, what have we got here? A rich edit 1. When you've got a component like that or a memo control list box and you're displaying lots of things in there with multiple buttons, it's normally a good idea to clear it before each button, just to make sure that it's nice and clean when you run the program, so you don't have a whole bunch of text adding onto each other. So we're just going to clear that rich edit, and then let's go. We're going to go from 1 to n, and all we're basically doing is displaying all the names. If you read there carefully, all we have to do is display the names. And we created a method or function called getName. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say this rich edit .lines.add, and I'm going to add whatever is in my array schools, or R schools, position R, and we're going to use the getName function. And it's literally that easy. For 2 marks, that should be it. And we run and go get all the applicants, and there we go. That one's quite easy. Let's go on to the 2.2.3. Now we have to do the accepted candidates. It's very similar to what we just did. The only difference is we only displaying those that were accepted. And the way that we know they were accepted, if you remember, we created a field, or not a field, a method called accepted, which returns true or false if they're accepted or not. But here's the thing that we must remember. If you remember correctly, if we go back to our application, let's go to accepted. There it is. It returns true or false based on if they paid a deposit or if their age is correct. Now, if you remember correctly, our age hasn't been calculated yet until we actually call this procedure calc age. So what we need to do for each and every element in the array, we need to call this calculate age procedure first, so that it can calculate the age before we do the accepted. Otherwise, it's not going to know what the age is to calculate from, because the age at the moment hasn't been calculated. So we need to do that step first. So we're going to do that. If we go to our form, we're going to accepted candidates. I think that's the one we need to do. And we display all those that have been accepted. So we want only those that are true. So again, I'm going to need a for loop variable. I'll like using R as my for loop variable. And as I said before, it's good practice just to clear that rich edit. It looks pretty, it makes things easier. So let's do our for loop. For I equal 1 to n do. Now, before we do anything, we need to first do actually 2 things. So that's why I'm writing a begin and end, because it's not just one thing. I've first got to do the calculate age for each of those elements in the school. So our schools are dot calculate age. So that means it'll calculate the age first. Once it's done that, then we can actually use the accepted field. So I'm going to say if our schools, I like being a part when I do the arrays, are accepted. If that is true, I don't have to say equals true, but if you want, I can do that. If that is true, then what must I do? Well, then I must say in the rich edit dot lines dot add, and we're going to add the names of the people that have been accepted. So our schools I dot get name. Now that's not all the work you're supposed to do, but let's just test to see if it works. Accepted candidates, so there we go. And does it look similar to what we need? Yes, it does. The second part of this question is we also need to display how many have been accepted. So that's almost like a count. So we've got to build in a count here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a count variable That's what I'm going to do there. And whenever you do a count, it's always good to initialize it. So I'm going to set count to 0. And whenever I find someone who's accepted, I must also increase count. So I'm going to increase count here. Now, a lot of you might say, oh, that's easy, that's done. But this is actually incorrect, because what's happening is this if statement only does one line at a time. So that's why it's only going to do this display in the rich edit if it's accepted. It's going to increase count for every single element of the array. You'll see, okay, we haven't displayed anything, so let me just do the display after the for loop. In the rich edit, one.lines.add. And we say, how do they want to display it? The number with children accepted. So it's the number, which is count, plus the word children accepted. But please remember, count is an integer, and this is rich edit takes in strings, so we must convert from an int to a string. Now, if I run this, as I said, it's not going to work. It's going to probably give me a few applicants, not just 11. There we go, 22. You can see there's not 22 people there. There's more than 22. So the problem there, as I said, is because this if statement only does this line for that if statement. If we want to do more than one, we must put a begin and we must put an end, so that it knows that for that if statement, it must do both of those statements. Now it should work. Accepted candidates. There we go. We've got 11. Perfect. Now let's see if we can do the last question. Reasons for non-acceptance. If the applicant has not accepted, then we must display their name as well as the reason why they weren't accepted. Okay, so it's very similar to what we've done in the previous question. So let's go to that part. Reasons for non-acceptance. Again, we're probably going to have an R variable because we're going to loop through the array. We're going to clear our rich edit because we're good people and that's why we like to do it. And then we're going to go for R equal 1 to n do. Okay. Now, again, the accepted, this is the reasons. If I go back to my reasons, let's go see my reasons. Reasons, get reason. It also is based on the age. Now, we've already used the calc age in the previous menu option, but I would recommend that you actually use the calculate age again, and the reason for that is because you do not know if the user is going to go and click on accepted candidates before he does reasons for non-acceptance. He might do this one first. If he does this one first and he hasn't done accepted candidates, then the calculate age will not have run, which means you'll get inaccurate data over here. So that's why it's always a good idea to make sure that you take all considerations. So I'm going to again call the calculate age for our schools. Calculate age. Then I'm going to ask if they were not accepted. If accepted equals false, which means they weren't accepted, then I need to in the rich edit control .lines.add, we're going to display. Now what are we going to display? We have to display their name first, and to get their name we must use the get name procedure. So we go our schools r.get name. Then there's a bit of a gap between the two, and you guys, if you know your Delphi, you'll know that's a tab, and for a tab you just go plus #9, and then we're going to put another plus, and then we're going to put the reason for them not being accepted, which will be our schools r.get reason. And hopefully that's all. Let's have a look and see if it works. Reasons for non-acceptance. There we go. It looks pretty much the same as that one. Just to show you what I was talking about, if we did not do this calculate age and we ran the program without doing the accepted candidates first, if we just did that, reasons for non-acceptance, do you see it gives me a whole lot of problems. That's very different, and that's because the calculate age hasn't been called yet, because everyone will have an age of 0 at the very least. So that's why we calculate the age, just in case they want to go straight to that option. Okay, just to recap for the OOP question, I think that's all that needs to be done for this question. But just to recap, when you're doing object-oriented questions, the first part is always creating the array, creating the object and its methods. Please remember that although the question might talk about lots of different objects or lots of like a text file with lots of data, you are only dealing with one aspect of that data, one element of that data. In the main program, which is the second part of the OOP question, you will probably deal with getting the data from a text file and put it into multiple variables of the object or an array of the object. So that's normally how you break it up. And as I said, just try, do what you can, get the marks where you can if you're not too sure, and you'll probably find as you try accumulate all the marks by doing the display correctly, doing the looping correct, calling the procedures that you created and the functions that you create. If you use that, you'll probably find you'll get most of the marks, if not getting very close to the solution if you can't get it working. I hope this video has helped you learn to not do it the long way, but to do it the Mr. Long way. For other videos like the first questions, for example, the SQL question, and for question 3, which is a 2D array question, which is quite heavy going, please go to our channel, go look at the videos, like what you like, subscribe, leave comments. We'd love to hear from you.